Here's a number that should stop you. Ads that use a sonic brand cue are 8.53 times more effective than ads that rely purely on visual. Not 50% more, not double, 8.5 times more effective. Why would one short sound do that much work? Today, Today the actual mechanism behind it. What's happening in your brain the moment it hears a sound it recognizes, and why that matters more than most brains assume. Let's start with the numbers because this isn't a matter of taste, it's measurable. That 8.53 times figures comes from Ipsos Creative Excellence, comparing ads with a sonic brand cue against ads that relied on visuals alone. And it's not an isolated start. Consistent audio branding across touchpoint has been shown to increase brand recall by more than 20%. These aren't small research samples either. Studies like this track thousands of ad exposures across categories, controlling for creative quality, media spend, and placement. And the sonic cue advantage holds up consistently across that range. This is the kind of number that should reshape a media plan, not get filled away as an interesting factoid. So before we get into why, sit with that for a second. A short sound deployed consistently is doing measurably more work than most of what brands spend their visual budget on. And it's worth asking why this keeps surprising people. Marketing budgets historically have been built around what's visible, what can be storyboarded, what a client can see in a deck before it's approved. Sound gets treated as an afterthought precisely because it's harder to point at in a slide. But the brand doesn't allocate its attention based on your budget line items. It responds what actually reaching it, and for a huge portion of the day, that's sound more than sight. Here's the mechanism. Your auditory pathway, the route sound takes through your brain, has a direct and robust interaction with your hippocampus. That's your brain memory center. Sound doesn't just get heard and forgotten. It can act as retrieval cue, something that pulls up a stored memory or experience the moment it heard again. That's the same mechanism behind why a song from years ago can instantly transport you back to a specific place and moment, fully intact, the second it starts playing. And this happens even when you're not actively paying attention. Even at low levels conscious focus, your brain is still processing sound and linking it to experience subliminally without you doing anything. That's fundamentally different from how most visual branding works, which usually requires you to actually be looking at it to register. Think about how much of your day involves sound reaching you while your eyes are doing something else entirely. Driving, cooking, scrolling a different app while a video plays in the background. Every one of those moments is a change for an auditory brand cue to reach the hippocampus, completely unavailable to a logo that needs your eyes pointed at it. Now here's where it gets genuinely strange, in a useful way. There's a well-documented phenomenon called the mere exposure effect. The more your brain encounters something, the less cognitive effort to take it to process it. The reduced effort gets registered internally as familiarity. And familiarity sits very close to preference. Things that feel familiar tend to feel more trustworthy, more likable without you consciously deciding that. This has been demonstrated across decades of psychology research, not just in branding. Show someone the same neutral shape or play them the same neutral sound repeatedly and their rated preference for it climbs, even when they can't tell you why they suddenly like it more. Sonic branding is essentially applying this well-established mechanism deliberately, on purpose, instead of leaving it get change. Here's the detail that matters most for sonic branding specifically. The effect is strongest in people who have no conscious memory of ever encountering the stimulus at all, meaning your brand sound doesn't need someone to consciously notice it. remember it and like it. Preference through exposure they don't even recall happening. This is also exactly why the length of the sound matters so much, and we've actually broken down the optimal duration for this in another video. A 3-second motif gets repeated dozens, sometimes hundreds of times across campaign without ever feeling repetitive to the listener because it barely registers consistently each time. Try that with a 30-second jingle and audience start to actively notice and resent the repetition. Brevity isn't a limitation here. It's what makes the exposure effect possible at scale in the first place. At Dimulti Music, this is the exact principle we design around. We're not trying to make something people consciously love the first time they hear it. We're building something small enough and consistent enough to quietly accumulate familiarity across dozens unremarkable exposures, the kind that never register individually but add up to real recognition. Put all of that together and you get a fairly clear conclusion. Musical memory is one of the most durable forms of long-term memory humans have. Sonic asset, sonic logo, jingles get retained and recalled more reliably than visual equivalent of similar complexity. Which is exactly why a short, repeatable motif beats an elaborate, rarely heard composition. Is not about how impressive the sound in isolation. It's about how many times your audience's brain gets to run that mere exposure loop, quietly building familiarity in the background, whether they're paying attention or not. If your brand sounds only shows up once in a while, in a long, complex form, it never gets enough repetition for any of this to compound. Consider two brands. One commissions a rich cinematic piece of music for a single flagship campaign, plays it a handful of times, then moves on something different next quarter. The other commissioned a short, simple motif, a plays version in every single touchpoint for years, an app open, a checkout confirmation, a 15-second bumper, and an ads closing frame. The first brand made something more impressive in isolation. The second brand is the one whose sound the audience brain actually holds onto, because it got repetition that memory formation requires. That's the actual case for investing properly in a short, well-designed motif. Not because it sounds nice, because it's the version of your brand sound, because it's the version of your brand sound that your audience memory can actually hold on to and keep reinforcing every single time it plays.